really happy to welcome Kelly Welch from HealthFuse here today. I actually work with Kelly at a few of our client sites, so actually we know each other already.
Yes.
But to formally introduce you, I would like to now introduce our speaker for this session, Kelly Welch. Kelly is the Senior Vice President of Client Services at HealthFuse. She has over 10 years of building and managing successful advisor teams and holds advanced degrees in healthcare administration and management. In her session, The Ideal Team Player, please put your hands together for Kelly.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Thank you for taking the time to attend this session. I hope you've all enjoyed the sessions you've attended today. I know the ones that I've been a part of have been absolutely fantastic, and I'm happy to be the one to kind of round out the day with my session on building and managing a successful team. So for our time today, I'll walk through really two key tools that we utilize at HealthFuse internally. We've utilized these tools for several years, and they've proven to be very successful in helping us find top talent to join our team and has helped us build and evolve our company culture, which we're really proud of as an organization that has helped us retain that top talent that we find. I recognize I am the final stop before there are cocktails and the final stop before there is presumed line dancing, which I promise I will partake in. So I'll do my best to keep this as entertaining and interesting as possible for you today. But prior to jumping into the content that I prepared, I wanted to provide just a very high-level overview of who HealthFuse is as an organization. I think it will just give you a little bit more context regarding the tools that I'll talk through today. So just as a company, we've recognized that revenue cycle has grown increasingly more complex. Of course, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but what we have seen really more in the last couple of years, more than ever, is that with the rising cost to operate, the war for top talent, the great resignation with retaining that top talent once you find them, is causing hospitals and health systems to leverage more vendors to support the revenue cycle than ever before. The thought, of course, and the objectives behind doing that is that vendors can often be more efficient in completing a process. They typically have more access to tools and resources than maybe a hospital or health system has access to. The thought is that a vendor can be more cost effective and can perform at a higher level, given that they're typically singularly focused on whatever the process is that they've been brought on board to accomplish on behalf of the health system. All of those things are absolutely true and are absolutely benefits of leveraging a vendor. But what we have found is that as the volume of vendors being leveraged with the health system's revenue cycle, as that grows, it can be more difficult and much more time consuming for hospital financial leaders to manage those relationships and then manage the outcomes of those relationships to ensure that whatever the objective was of that partnership, whether it was to reduce your costs, increase your performance, be more efficient, that those objectives are being met. So at HealthFuse, we aim to bridge that gap between hospitals and vendors by helping hospitals build, optimize, and manage their revenue cycle vendor management office. Our goals and objectives as an organization are 100% aligned with the goals and objectives of hospital financial leaders and the vendors they partner with, which is to maximize collections or cash performance, and doing so at a cost that's both fair and competitive with where the rest of the industry falls. Our vendor management office is a blend of research tools and technology and service. And in order to fulfill the mission that we have as an organization, in order to achieve the commitments that we set for our hospital partners, it's really important for us as an organization to have a really healthy blend of individuals that support what we do every single day. So our team is comprised of folks that have different levels of expertise, different experiences, different personality traits. I'm sure there's a lot of parallels with your own organization with what I just shared. So just to give you a sense of the type of folks that we have on our team, just within operations, so this doesn't factor in sales or marketing or administrative functions, we have a team of operations analysts that help us build and compile and distribute and analyze reports to hospitals and vendors. We have a team of business intelligence analysts that are responsible for the guts behind all of those reports and ensuring that the data is flowing correctly and accurately into our reports. we have coders and developers that help support our technology to ensure that we're staying ahead of the industry and innovating on our technology to ensure we have the most sophisticated tools. And then we have client service advisors on our team that are responsible for building deep and trusting relationships with our hospital partners. They're the executors of initiatives that we've identified. They are the ones that help close gaps that we identify for process and performance gaps. So this gives you just a really good blend of the type of people that we look for, that we have to hire and that we have to have as part of our team. And then just a little bit about me. I've been with HealthFuse for 10 years. I've been within client services for that entire time. I started as an advisor where I worked directly with our hospital partners, and my role has just evolved over the last decade, where I now oversee the entire team, which is comprised of 17 advisors and senior advisors. I'm sure many of you in the room know Jason Ruiz. He's in the back. So he is a part of the client services team. He's a senior advisor on our team. He is a fantastic person and a fantastic resource. So if you haven't had a chance to meet him, I would encourage you to do so. If you can't already tell by my accent, I am a born and raised Wisconsinite. I always say that cheese runs thick through my veins. So bear with me just with some of the exaggerated O's and the exaggerated A's as we go on the presentation today. I probably shouldn't say this in a public forum, but I've been told many occasions that my voice sounds just like Sarah Palin. So I'm sorry, or you're welcome for putting that in your mind as we go through the rest of the conversation today. So long wind up to get to the agenda, but what I'll walk through with you today are the two tools that we utilize at HealthFuse for our team, the Ideal Team Player and Predictive Index. I'll talk through what they are and the concept behind them, and then how we apply them in a day-to-day basis. So want to start just with a quote, and the quote is that a team is not a group of people that work with one another. A team is a group of people that trust each other. Just to kind of say that again to let it sink in, a team is not a group of people who work together. A team is a group of people that trust one another. As we reflected on this several years ago as a leadership team, I think one of the first things that we openly acknowledged as leaders at HealthFuse is that we're not perfect as individuals, and we never will be. We accept that about ourselves, and we know where we're strong and where we're less strong and need to rely on others for their areas of strength. But what we've committed to as an organization and as leaders is that we are going to continuously be committed into evolving as leaders and evolve as team members as part of a team. And we expect and ask of that same commitment for every single person that is a part of our team. And we emulate that by providing transparency and openly discussing amongst one another where we're strong, where someone else may be weak and may need to lean on someone else, or less strong and may need to lean on somebody else. And through that, we've established a culture that communicates very openly, speaks very transparently, and has been proven to be very successful for our team. Maybe just to tell a quick story. So last summer, in August, we flew our entire company up to Milwaukee, which is where we're based, as part of an all-company event and a team-building event. I pulled the client services team out onto a boat. We went out into Lake Michigan, and it was a dinner tour, a taco tour, and we looked at the Milwaukee skyline, which isn't very big, but it's pretty. And once I had everyone secluded on a boat and trapped on a boat, and maybe once they all had a cocktail, I went up to each of them individually and said, tell me transparently, frankly, no filter, what would cause you to leave our organization? What is the one thing that would pull you away from HealthFuse? What would cause us to lose you? One person out of my team of 15 at the time, one person said money, which is okay, right? Money is incredibly important, and it's probably the highest motivator of every employee. But one person out of 15 said money in response. Everybody else said culture. If something were to shift with the culture and the family environment and the team environment that we've built as a team, that is when they would know that their time at HealthFuse is up. But it wasn't always that way. So, as I was reflecting and preparing for this conversation today, I thought back to a time 7 or 8 years ago where it felt like HealthFuse was a bit of a revolving door with our team. We were so hyper-focused on getting people in the door, that we were growing rapidly, we needed resources desperately, but we learned very quickly that we were not prioritizing the right thing. We were prioritizing resources and getting people in seats versus getting the right people in the right seats. So we realized, that was a pivotal moment for us that something had to change. So me standing here today, I just want to be very clear, I am not an HR expert, I am not a leader expert, I'm not a management expert. So what I'm sharing with you, I will never say is best practices, but I'm really just sharing what's worked for us and what's been successful for us. So hopefully you'll pull something out of this today. So starting with the Ideal Team Player, it's a book. Just out of curiosity, has anyone read this book? Okay, so you'll be able to attest to some of the things that I'll share here. So you're probably thinking, is she up here telling me to read a book? Yes, I'm telling you to read a book. It's a really good one. It's a really quick read, cover to cover. It's probably 4 or 5 hours if you were to go through it in one sitting. But the author, Patrick Lencioni, within this book talks about how the ideal team player, possesses 3 key virtues and has to possess these three virtues in order to be a solid team member or the ideal team player. And those 3 virtues are being hungry, humble, and smart. So just to talk about each of those, someone who is hungry is someone on your team that is constantly going to be committed and laser focused on whatever the task or goal is at hand. They're willing to jump in and always offer support or always offer help, even if that means they're stepping outside of the core responsibilities of their individual job function. Someone who is humble is someone that understands that in a team environment, the we is stronger than the me. There's someone who will readily acknowledge where they may have some weaknesses. There is someone who will very openly praise those who have done a good job. And someone who is smart is often misconstrued as someone who's intelligent. It's often misconstrued as IQ, but this is more about emotional intelligence or EQ. Someone who is smart is going to prioritize their relationship with their colleagues, really understand what motivates their peers, how they like to receive communication and feedback, and tailor their approach to accommodate the needs of their colleagues. So again, Patrick in the book talks about how you have to have all 3 of these virtues in order to be an ideal team player. This visual here shows some examples of why you can't just have 1 virtue or possess 2 virtues. So just to kind of give you a sense or give you a good picture, some of the cheeky names he gives is the skillful politician. This is going to be someone that is smart and hungry. So they prioritize relationships with people. They know how to communicate to people. They're laser focused on a goal and getting the job done, but they're not humble. So they take credit for successes and don't acknowledge that there are others that have supported them along the way in achieving their success. That can cause resentment in a team environment and in a work setting. Another example is the lovable slacker. So someone who is humble and smart. So same thing, they prioritize their relationships. They have strong bonds with their team and understand how to communicate effectively with others. And they're quick to offer praise and acknowledge those that have done well, but they're not hungry. They're not focused on actually getting the job done, and maybe one of those people where you have to pick up the slack of their work. So same thing, they're well liked, they're well connected, but that lack of hunger can cause resentment. So when we talk about how we emulate this at HealthViews and how we bring these concepts into practice, I'd say there's really 2 key things. First is we talk about being hungry, humble, and smart on day 1 of a new employee's time at HealthViews. We talk about how these are valuable to us, what they mean, introducing them to the concept. And then every single month we have a state of the company meeting where Nick Fricano, our CEO, provides company updates to the team. It's an all-hands virtual event. And as part of that, we ask our team to vote on one individual that has best emulated the hungry, humble, and smart virtues. And we recognize them as a company as being an ideal team player and really evoking the values that we talk about all the time as an organization. And that person will get a gift card or get a spot bonus just to recognize them for being an excellent member of our team. The second way that we really emulate hungry, humble, and smart, and this concept of the ideal team player is in our employee performance discussions that each employee has with their manager. So it's probably super small to see on the screen, but we ask employees every single quarter to complete a self-assessment of themselves regarding how they have performed as a team member. This survey in no way, shape, or form impacts someone's raise or their bonus or their promotion, as it's really geared at pushing the employee to assess themselves really critically. And these questions, it comes directly out of the book. We did not create this, so if you have a copy of the book, this survey is in there. And for each of those 3 virtues, the employee is asked to rank themselves as for each of these attributes. If I never do these things, I sometimes do these things, or I always do these things. So just as an example, some of the questions that are on there is, I easily admit my mistakes for the humble virtue. I am genuinely invested in the lives of my coworkers for the smart. And then, I look to contribute outside of my areas of opportunity for hungry, just to give you a sense of some of the questions that are in here. What this does is it fosters really good conversations with each employee's manager about, where they want to focus as continuing to evolve as a team member on the next quarter. And I think what's really important here is scores are going to change depending on your personal demands and your work demands. So an example I give is a brand new employee is probably going to score themselves higher in the hungry virtue. They're laser focused on mastering their new role, learning the business, learning how to structure their day-to-day, and maybe hasn't taken the time to really get to know their new team members. So maybe their next quarter, they're going to focus on really focusing on learning the team. And getting more invested in the team. However, in order to be as self-critical as possible and be able to assess where you have areas for opportunity to evolve, it's really critical that you're aware of your own natural behaviors and areas of caution, as well as being aware of those same natural behaviors and areas of caution for the team that you interact with, or if you're a manager, the team that you manage every single day, which is where predictive index comes into play. So what is predictive index? It's a behavioral assessment that measures behavioral traits and natural strengths and drives and needs and motivators of an individual. It's been around since the 1950s. It's used all across the world and in virtually any industry. So it's something that can be applied no matter what type of organization that you work for. And it really helps you understand the needs of a specific role within your organization, depending on the traits that others that have been successful in that role possess and what it really requires in order to be successful in that role, and allows you to make decisions in terms of how to manage and how to hire new talent on your team. So one thing, I think one quote or one concept I'm sure all of you have heard is that, an employee, when they show up to work one day, they need to leave their personal lives at the door. I think we've all heard that. But when you think about that, how realistic is that? And one of the things that PI or predictive index has helped us understand is the whole person. What motivates the entire person, because you can't pick and choose who shows up to work one day. You get that whole person every single day. So PI helps us really understand that person holistically. It gives us insight into the head, heart, and briefcase. So the head is going to be natural behavioral traits, cognitive reasoning. The heart is what is important to that individual. What are their core values? This is also where that smart virtue and ideal team player comes into play. Really investing to learn, does an employee value making as much money as possible? Do they value the highest title that they can achieve? Do they value just flexibility and making sure that they have time to be home with their family? Really understanding that heart is critical. And then finally, the briefcase of an individual is a little bit more black and white, really represents someone's resume, where they've been professionally, their experience, any accomplishments and achievements that they've had throughout their career. So PI kind of gives us these two kind of missing pieces about an individual and gives us the full picture of head, heart, and briefcase. So what PI measures? PI will measure 4 behavioral traits that every single individual will assess. So starting with the A trait. The A trait is going to measure someone's need for dominance, which is the drive to exert their influence on people or events. It will help us assess someone's extroversion levels, so their drive or their need for social interaction with other people. It will help us understand their patience traits, which is the drive or the need for consistency and stability in the workplace. And then it will help us understand their formality levels, which is the drive to conform to rules and structure. So just to define what each of those mean a little bit further, so the A trait or dominance, again, is the need to drive, the drive to exert one's influence on people or events. Someone who has a really high A trait or a high dominance need is going to be someone that is highly controlling, very self-confident, likes to be in the driver's seat and in control. Someone that has a lower A trait is going to be someone that strives for more harmony and collaboration in the workplace. They're generally accepting of other people's ideas and don't necessarily need to be the one with all of the ideas that everyone is working to achieve. They tend to shy away from individual competition. The B trait or extroversion helps us understand someone's need for social interaction with other people. A lot of times this can be misunderstood in terms of how well someone communicates with others, when it really helps us understand how someone or how an individual processes information. So someone with a high B trait craves social attention or social interactions. They appreciate recognition in a public forum. Generally, they're outgoing, enthusiastic, and is highly extroverted. Someone with a low B trait can often be misunderstood as disengaged, when really this person just takes more time to trust, appreciates the opportunity to absorb information prior to responding. So if I'm a manager of someone that has a low B trait, if I want them to be, a participator in a meeting, they're going to better participate if they have time to prepare in advance of that meeting versus respond on the fly. Someone, or the C trait is representative of someone's patient levels or the drive for consistency and stability in a workplace. So someone with a high C trait is going to be someone that needs and thrives in an environment where the workload is somewhat predictable or repetitive, and there's not a lot of interruptions in the day-to-day. This person likes to take their time, is generally patient and calm, and will likely be a very loyal employee to you, as they're not necessarily constantly chasing what's next. Someone with a low C trait is going to come off as intense and impatient and is really going to thrive in chaotic environments. I see Jason laughing. And really thrives in situations where no day is the same, and they have the opportunity to react and respond on the fly. And then finally, formality, the D trait, again, the drive to conform to rules and structure. Someone with a high D trait is going to be someone that really needs a lot of direction and clear expectations outlined to them to master whatever the task is that they are responsible for. This is going to be someone that's more foot on the brakes and takes the time to ensure that accuracy levels are being met. This is going to be someone who is your perfectionist on the team. Someone with a low formality is going to be someone that needs freedom from rigid rules and rigid structure and has the opportunity to make decisions. They're comfortable with ambiguous tasks or workload. But because they move a little bit more quickly, they may compromise some of the details or some of the accuracy as a result. So when someone completes a predictive index survey, we're given a profile that looks somewhat like this. And when assessing someone's traits and how their results come across, it all has to do with where each trait falls on this midpoint line. So the higher to the right of the midpoint that a trait falls, the higher that need is for that individual. The further to the left of the midpoint that trait falls, the lower the need for that individual. If something falls close to the midpoint, or in this example, the A trait, that represents someone that can be flexible with that trait based on whatever the situation is that they are faced with. the benefits of seeing an individual that has a high extremity or a low extremity is that that's going to be highly predictable about that person. We know that this example here, the B trait or the extroversion trait is extremely high, an extremely high need for that individual. So we know that person is going to crave and need opportunities where they can interact with other people in their day-to-day environment. So that's one positive of seeing an extremity like that. The drawback is those individuals are going to be less flexible with those traits, less likely to change because it is such a dominant trait that they possess. So just to interpret this person here, their A trait or their dominance trait, so the need to exert one's influence on others or events, is situational. So it falls right on the midpoint line. So depending on whatever it is that they're faced with, they can either be the leader and take control over a situation, or they can be more collaborative in nature. And again, it's all going to be dependent on the situation. They have an extremely high need for the extroversion trait. So this person is going to need to have the opportunity to work with people and influence people. Their C trait, the patience trait, which is the need for stability and consistency, is a little bit to the left of the midpoint. So this person, generally speaking, likes variety in their day-to-day, but likely will respond positively if here and there they have a task that they have to complete every month or every single week that's a little bit more predictable or redundant. And then their formality is a little bit further to the left, so a little bit more of a need, which is the drive to conform to rules or structure. This person is comfortable working without rigid rules, without rigid expectations, and likes the freedom to really make their own decisions. Just one more behavioral example. So if you compare this example to the prior one, they're really not terribly different with the exception of the A trait. The A trait is extremely prominent for this person, which means this is a highly, highly independent person, a person that likes to be in control. The other key difference with this person is their D trait is a little bit stronger. So they like to make decisions independently and have freedom from rules and policies, which when you think about that, that's not terribly surprising, right? Someone that is highly independent is likely going to have more of a need to make their own decisions and have that freedom and flexibility in a workplace, which leads me into this next section. So not only does this assessment tell us how prominent each of these individuals or individual traits are for one person, there is something to be said and some analysis you can pull based on how each of these traits correlate with one another. And those are referred to as factor combinations. So there are 6 in total. I'm not going to go through all of them, and I'll hit on these at a really high level. But I've pulled out 3 that I'll walk through, and they all have to do with where the B, C, and D trait falls in line with the A trait, as that really gives us insight into how that person is going to collaborate or be controlling as part of a team. So the first relationship we look at is the A trait in comparison to the extroversion trait. So if someone has a higher A trait than they do a B trait, that person is going to be more task-oriented than people-oriented. So more creative in nature, but will make decisions without collaborating with others on their team. They're comfortable and confident in their own decisions and don't need to really engage others in order to make a decision. On the flip side, someone that has a higher B trait than an A trait is going to be someone that really likes consensus when making decisions. They delegate easily, like to talk through options with others before reaching a conclusion. When we compare the A trait to the C trait, which is the need for stability and predictability, this tells us where the A and C trait fall with one another, tells us how proactive or responsive someone is. So if someone has a higher A trait than a C trait, this is going to be someone that is incredibly decisive, adapts easily as a change agent, thrives in environments that are changing, but may have a harder time listening. On the flip side, someone that has a C trait that's higher than the A trait is someone that's going to be more responsive in nature. So a really strong listener, but doesn't do as well in environments that are ever changing, takes time to understand the why behind a change before they adopt that change. And then finally, when we look at the A trait in comparison to the D trait or the formality trait, that tells us how comfortable or cautious someone is going to be with taking risks. Someone who has a higher A trait than D trait is going to be someone that makes decisions very quickly, is comfortable with risk, versus someone who has a higher D trait than an A trait is going to be a little bit more cautious. Kind of a visual I always give to this is you think of two people riding a bike at the top of the hill. This person here is going to let the gas go all the way down. They're going to get to the bottom of the hill quicker, whereas this person on the left is going to ride the brakes all the way down. So they're going to get there slower, but if they fall off their bike, the risk of injury is much less than that first person who's just riding the gas all the way down. So you can kind of give a sense of all of the information that predictive index can tell us about an individual. Though if you were to leverage a tool like predictive index, you're not expected to get all those bubbles on a sheet and expected to interpret them on your own. You do get a ton of reports and a ton of tools that will really analyze a person's profile for you. And this is just meant to show all of the different profiles that an individual can possess. So I'm a captain here. Jason, I believe you are a persuader, if I'm not mistaken, but it'll bucket each of these profiles under these 4 categories. So you can see if someone is naturally wired to be analytical or they're naturally wired to be social, just to give you a sense. So now that you've got a good sense of the tools that we utilize and what they are and the concept behind them, I'll talk through how we emulate them in our day-to-day environment at HealthViews, starting with recruiting. One of the really powerful things about predictive index is it allows us to build an ideal candidate profile based off of those that have been successful in the role in the past. So just to pick on our advisor role or the client services role, given that I'm the closest to it, these individuals are client-facing or hospital-facing. They're responsible for building relationships, establishing trust with people. So they have to have a need and thrive under environments where they work with individuals. They have a lot of variety. At HealthViews, we work end-to-end revenue cycle. So one day they could be working on a denial management project, but the next day they're sourcing a contract coder for one of our clients. So there's a ton of variety, and you'll be challenged with tasks that maybe you've never done before but have to figure it out. So this person has to crave that variability in their day-to-day. We have to make decisions or help our hospital partners make decisions. Sometimes they're multi-million-dollar decisions. So we have to be comfortable with making decisions. You have to be a decisive individual, but you also cannot compromise accuracy and some of the details. So it kind of gives you a sense of the type of person that we're looking for, and it's a really hard role to fill because it's a really hard job. But what it tells us, so in the event we get a candidate who doesn't completely fit our profile, there's some areas or some misalignment that isn't necessarily a showstopper for us in the recruiting process, but what it allows us to do is it allows us to tailor our questions during the interview process in the areas where we know that person may have a harder time in the role or where they may be pushed outside of their comfort zone. It also allows us to be more transparent with a candidate about the demands of the role and where we think they may be pushed outside of their comfort zone based on what we know about their profile. And then if we ultimately decide to bring that person on as a member of our team, we know as a manager where we need to focus our training on and where they may need more support, just given that we're going to be pushing them outside of their comfort zone. And then one area that I haven't really hit on much here with predictive index, just because it's a little bit more black and white, is that there is a cognitive assessment component with predictive index that helps us understand someone's cognitive reasoning, mathematical skills, how much they can critically think. And same thing, we can set a target cognitive score for each position just to see where each candidate falls there. So that's really how we lean on predictive index for recruiting and training and really finding the right fit individuals for our team. The next is with employee engagement and retention. I love this report within predictive index. It's called the Management Strategy Guide, and what it does is it tailors the report to each individual's predictive index profile and tells us what do they need in a work environment from a structural standpoint. How do they best respond to feedback? what type of what's their comfort level with risks and decision making, and what should we do as a manager to really lean on those areas of strength. So what we've encouraged our managers to do is to pull this report in advance of performance discussions that they have with their employee and conduct an assessment of themselves as a manager for that individual employee based on their needs. And so I think, Jason, this is for you, actually. So like Jason's profile here says he needs a lot of independence and control over his own activities. He likes to be challenged and figure things out on his own, and won't respond well to a manager that's constantly breathing down his neck. So if I'm Jason's manager and I'm reflecting on myself as a manager, there's something really powerful about taking this report and talking to an employee, basically saying, you know what, Jason, I recognize that I have maybe been a little bit more hands-on with your day-to-day tasks than you probably prefer me to be, and I'm going to focus on, as your manager, taking a little bit more of a back seat with you, and you know, I'm here if you need me, but I've recognized that I need to do this for you. And there's something really, really powerful about having that type of conversation with a member of your team by acknowledging where you're going to grow and invest in them as an individual and as part of your team, and be a better manager for them. It opens the door, not only that you're not perfect as a manager, but it also opens the door to have really transparent conversations and could change the dynamic or the relationship that you have with that individual. So really, really powerful tool. From a professional development standpoint, another report that I find to be really helpful for individual contributors on our team, or just individuals in general, is this self-coaching guide. So one of the reports we can pull is based on your own individual strengths. So this example here, this person has a very high dominance trait. So again, the need to exert one's influence on people or events. This will tell you what your strengths are, but more importantly, what your areas of caution are and how those on your team could perceive you. So for this person, it says, you know, they could be perceived as overly aggressive. They could be perceived as intimidating instead of motivating. They could be tough-minded and stuck in their ways, could be the perception of their colleagues. So this provides awareness to each individual regarding how this natural trait of theirs may be misinterpreted by their team, even if intentions are good, and allows them to be more cognizant of those things when communicating with others. You know, I think I also have a very high dominance trait, and you know, one of the recommendations is think before you speak. So I probably didn't apply that earlier when I said I sound like Sarah Palin, but it gives you a sense of just some of the tools that it tells you. So just to bring it back to ideal team player, again, as individuals have these reports and have the tools to really be more self-aware of how they're naturally wired, it allows our team to be as honest with themselves as possible when conducting this survey regarding how they can be a better team member, or how they can continue to evolve as a team member. The final piece I'll really leave with you, I know I'm talking probably a million miles a minute, is what managers can do as they're compiling a team. So what this visual is meant to represent is predictive index allows us the ability to take different profiles. So if I'm trying to assign a team to a new client of ours, or assign a team to an internal initiative that we have, or an internal project, you can pick and choose people on the team and see how they'll interact with one another based on their natural behaviors and their natural strengths. So you'll know, on a team, who can I lean on to be the lead of this project? Who's going to take the lead and be the one in control and make sure that we're accomplishing the task and meeting our deliverable? We can know, who's the one I can lean on to boost employee morale and keep the team motivated to complete the task, or who's going to be the one that I can really lean on to push the team to think outside of the box. So it gives us a ton of additional uses based on the tool. So just in closing, see, I'm ending early so I can get everyone to cocktails, but I know I've thrown a lot at you today. But I hope you've pulled something from this session. The environment that we work in, revenue cycle, is really, really tough. And Claire, you mentioned it earlier, finding finding really good people is really, really hard, but it's so critical to the success of your organization, whether you're a provider or a vendor. And so this is what's worked for us, both in finding the right fit people for our team and ensuring that we're fulfilling the needs of those individuals and keeping them happy within the culture that we have in our environment. And I think one of the items too, just to go back to one of the earlier statements I've made, is that we're continuously invested in evolving as a company, finding ways that we can continue to enhance on our culture. Maybe to be continued for next year, one of the things that I'm focusing on is reading a book about failures in the workplace. I think, Claire, you mentioned this earlier too, and providing psychological safety in the workplace to acknowledge mistakes and bring mistakes to our attention more readily and in a safe space so we can learn from those mistakes and continue to evolve as a team. So that's kind of my commitment to continuing to evolve as a leadership team and support our team and support the culture we have at HealthViews. So again, hope you pulled something out of this today, even if you grabbed one small thing. I'll consider that a success. So thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.